into the principles of pleasure and power. And when I say the principles of pleasure and power, it's talking about how our pleasure and giving ourselves the space, the time, the slowness to tap into our pleasure actually also leads to our power. And it's also something that I like to call soft power, which is leading with empathy, leading with understanding, creating bridges instead of walls, right? So pleasure isn't just like a selfish, indulgent thing that we've maybe been taught in the past, but it actually has powerful implications for who we are as leaders as well. And so in this module, you're going to learn where you've been blocking your pleasure and kind of the societal conditioning around pleasure, where we might have been disconnected from it on a personal level, and also where we might have been disconnected from it on a larger level. We're going to do a meditation to clear that block and to give ourselves full permission to feel into our pleasure. And then we'll also do a little experience around how we can tap into our pleasure more, not just in our little day-to-day things, but on a larger level. And who is that version of us who's fully living in their pleasure, who's letting pleasure lead, who knows they're deserving of this joy and this richness of life, and making that the priority and doing from that place versus like, I'll do this when then, which kind of contracts our pleasure. And so today is really going to be an exploration of that. And to start off, I want to talk a little bit about pleasure as it relates to feminine energy. So we live in a very masculine or masculine energy dominant world. And it's never to say just to operate with one or the other, but so often the pendulum is so far swung to the masculine side that we need to really swing the pendulum the other way to bring in some of the feminine energy and to also balance the two. And, in terms of the upgrade group coaching program, we do pleasure and power in week 10 because the first few weeks we are learning about, our patterns in our life, our self-sabotage, where they're coming from, how we can repattern them, right? How we can make our inner child feel safe. And that's not a one-off relationship. It's a relationship that we continue to keep doing. And then on top of that, we then go into, after transforming those patterns into new empowered beliefs, then what does manifesting from this place of possibility look like? How can we create that life that we know we're ready for without those limitations? And after that, then we go into the communication that supports that and getting clear on the boundaries that support that new energy. Who is that version of us who protects their energy, who communicates from a place of power? And then last week in the upgrade, we talked about, money, pleasure, and power, and what it looks like to value ourselves and to have that slow, intimate, connected relationship with money, because money is a sense of security. And that's our, if we're thinking about it in the chakra system or energy point system, that's at our base. That's our root chakra, our sense of safety and security. And so as we move up the chakra system, we're now in our sacral chakra, our svadhisthana chakra, which is the seat of our sensuality and our creativity. So in terms of like the journey of where we're going, it's really, and especially as you go through this on your own or in your own toolkit, first looking at like, where are my old patterns showing up? How are they showing up? How can I repattern them? What does my inner child need to feel safe? And then, what is that grand vision I have for myself now that I've removed the shoulds, right? And removing the shoulds is also a huge part of feminine energy, right? Because the shoulds kind of represent the masculine, the things that we think we need a strong arm or get through. And shedding the shoulds allows us to blossom and do from a place of joy and delight. So an easy place to start is even just asking yourself, where am I doing things out of obligation versus like what I actually enjoy? Where am I rushing through things instead of doing things like slowly or from a place of ease? And where am I kind of shortcutting my pleasure because it might feel scary or I feel undeserving of it? And if you think about pleasure also, like in terms of, for example, an orgasm, it can feel very scary, that total, complete surrender. So of course, there might be times where our inner saboteur or inner child is afraid of that level of pleasure. So it's just having compassion and starting to ask yourself these questions with curiosity. And so now, before we get into, kind of the constraints of how it's being blocked in our own life in certain ways, I want to talk about pleasure and power in terms of society. So we kind of talked about the masculine energy of, strong arming things, but also women for, centuries, if not millennia, have been disconnected from their pleasure in certain ways or discouraged from it because they've, strict laws have been put into place to, you know, not allow women the right to vote, not allow women the right to choose, even in this day and age. Like laws are up in the air, being in reversed in some states of women losing their right to choose, and thus making sex more of a reproductive thing versus like something a woman can do for pleasure on a very literal sense of like the sexuality sense of it, which is absolutely oppression and disconnecting us from ourselves. Or women are called derogatory things like sluts or whores if they enjoy sex or prioritize pleasure or dress a certain way, right? There's all these derogatory terms for women, whereas like in the flip side, up until recently and still in some places, men are called like the man, for having a lot of women or being a womanizer or whatever. It has different connotations. So even just that like societal example of how we've been disconnected from pleasure is absolutely the reason that it's like more important now than ever, not only, for living fully in our pleasure as women. And if you're a man, it's also equally important to tap into this in an empathetic way, and also be an ally for women, in making them feel safe enough to express their pleasure, because a powerful man is one who can hold the space for a woman to shine. But also, as it relates to what I was talking about before with soft power and like leadership on, an individual level and on a global stage, the more we can process and sit with our own emotions, the more we can use our emotions as intuition and as power to like guide us of where to go next, the more we can kind of live in this expansive place. And so the woman that I really am inspired by for this particular discussion of pleasure and power is Mama Gina, who wrote Pussy, a Reclamation. And shout out to my old coach, Victoria, who was the one who recommended me Pussy, a Reclamation. And Pussy at Reclamation is all about taking our power back as women, and all about like the mystical arts of feminine energy and ways that we can do this. And I want to touch on a few key points that Mama Gina makes. Number one, even just the word pussy has been like given negative connotations throughout the ages, like Ben being like, oh, you're such a pussy. But it's like, where they're meaning it to be derogatory or weak. But actually, pussy is the strongest organ in the body. It literally gives birth. And then people will be like, grow a pair of balls, but you flick a ball and a man crumbles. It doesn't make sense. It's not fair. It's trying to trick us or have our power, have us separated from our power, if you will. So that's like one point just to add to that. And like, yeah, with what we're seeing in kind of global politics of like the strong arming, the bullying, the being insecure, taking our unprocessed emotions out on other people, whether it's individually or on the global stage. Soft power and leading with pleasure actually help us feel secure in ourselves. They help us process our emotions so then we can use our intuition as a superpower, and then we can lead from that place of empathy, of understanding with others, of wanting to build a bridge because we don't feel threatened. So those are a few points. And also, two or three other things Mama Gina says that are really powerful pleasure practices before we get into our own is number one, she says, women have been put against each other for centuries, like, divide and conquer, put as competition for men, competition in the workplace. So a great way to tap into your pleasure actually is also surrounding yourself with other powerful women and celebrating your wins. We've been taught to keep ourselves small, to like, hide our achievements, hide our accomplishments. So a way to actually tap into your pleasure is to celebrate yourself more. Celebrate yourself with a group of friends. Like, hey, I have a win to share. Celebrate yourself when you do something, not just like, outwardly magnificent or great, but like I rearranged my my house today and cleaned it up, and it feels really good, and I'm really proud of myself. And these kind of celebrating of the small wins start to help us reclaim our pleasure and start to send the message to our subconscious, I'm worth being celebrated, even though it is such a small thing. It's such an easy thing to do as well. Number 2 is something Mama Gina calls swamping, which in the upgrade, we did it kind of in our shadow week. When we let our shadow lead, we let our shadow dance. She talks about swamping as like putting on rage music or music to help you process like grief or anger or sadness. So it doesn't just sit there, because leading from pleasure doesn't mean never experiencing sadness or grief. It actually means allowing those things to come out, not being afraid of them, processing them, knowing that you'll move through them, and knowing that you're powerful enough to sit with those emotions. So swamping is kind of like somatic release, as you can think of it, like screaming into a pillow, like letting your emotion like be fully, like letting you fully embody yourself in your emotion. Like, oh, I'm just feeling so gross and disgusting and like a sloth for just sitting here and scrolling. Blah. Like letting yourself fully feel it, or feel it to heal it, as Edith Eger, who wrote The Choice, would say. So swamping is a great activity, and one that I highly recommend you do this week to experience your emotions and get tapped into deeper pleasure. And then another one that she talks about is having a date night for yourself where no one else is coming over, and you put on your red lipstick like I did for you all today, and you plate your food beautifully that you cook for yourself, or get yourself a bouquet of flowers like Miley Cyrus would say, and like really take the slow time you would with a lover that you're getting to know. Like you'd be so excited if someone you're really excited about planned this date for you. So like plan it for yourself. And again, that shows that message to your subconscious, like I'm worth it. I take time on myself. I do these great things for me, even if there's no one else, here watching. So with all that being said, of course, there's like the other obvious things with pleasure too, of like igniting all of your senses, going for a slow walk, letting yourself like have a breakfast where you don't look at your phone and you notice every single taste of every single thing that's on your plate. But these are some initial pleasure practices. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually look at where we've been blocking our pleasure, looking at where we've been disconnected from our pleasure. Maybe you felt like your emotions were too much, or you've been told, yeah, your emotions are too much, or don't cry, or don't do that. So you become disconnected from your emotions. You've become disconnected from your intuition. Or maybe you grew up in society where, women didn't have the same rights as men. For an example, for me, I grew up in Houston, Texas. I was a cheerleader, and the cheerleaders, it was all about like making the football players cookies for their games every Friday night, and like, celebrating the football players. And like, that's just a funny example. And then also in college, like, you know, I, at school, like in the social clubs, like at the time that I was there, the men controlled the social scene because they had the spaces where people went to party. So they would put girls on the list to come to their parties. And I went to Harvard, and so it wasn't just like other Harvard girls, it was girls from 10 other colleges. So the ratio of guy to girl was always like one guy to 10 girls oftentimes. And yeah, there were like guys that controlled the list to if you get into a party or not. So it's like there was this like weird power dynamic at play. And I saw like really successful girls, including myself, forget our power and just be like, am I on the list? I hope I can make it into this party on a Friday night, and kind of sacrifice our own power or how great we are to try to get into this space that's controlled by men. And these are just like small examples, but just to get your memory jogging. So I want you to pause this now, and I just want you to reflect on like where have you become disconnected from your pleasure. Maybe it was in the traditional like male female role sense. Maybe it was in not trusting your intuition or letting the shoulds run, doing what I feel like I should do. Maybe it was in ignoring your emotions, ignoring your intuition. So pause this recording and just write down, where have I become disconnected from my pleasure? And just notice, like set the timer for 10 minutes and just notice like all the different things or things from life that flash through your mind. So go ahead and pause. And when you're done, come back. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back from that juicy pause. And so hopefully now you're kind of getting an idea of where you might have been disconnected from your pleasure. And what we're going to do is we're going to take it even deeper now that you've had that initial look at that. And we're going to do an elevator meditation, which, we do in week 2 of the upgrade when we look at where certain patterns came from in our childhood and how they're still showing up. So we're going to do one related to pleasure just to excavate, see if there's anything deeper going on in the background with what we've already excavated. And then we're going to, well, I won't tell you now. We'll just do it when it happens. But yeah, so we're going to do the elevator meditation like we do in week 2, which is going to give us better data points or insights of where this is coming from. And this is also a meditation that is very similar to and inspired from the meditation they do in the Hoffman process, which I talk about often, which is the 1-week program to reparent your inner child. So go ahead and find a comfortable seat. Just go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath in. And open mouth exhale, sigh it out. Another deep breath in. Exhale, let it go. And third and deepest breath in. And exhale, release. And as you take nice, slow, deep breaths, imagine that you're walking on a beach, feeling the sun on your skin, the wind in your hair, the sand in your toes, and you come to an elevator. This beautiful glass elevator, and you get inside the elevator. And you press a button where I've been disconnected from my pleasure. The elevator doors close, the elevator goes up, it lifts up through the sky, up through the clouds, and it opens up to a scene from your earlier life. Maybe it's your childhood, maybe it's your adolescence, where you really felt disconnected from your pleasure. Maybe it didn't feel safe to be in your pleasure, maybe you didn't feel deserving. Just noticing how old you are in this scene. Noticing who else is in the scene. And noticing how that version of you starts to feel disconnected from their pleasure, from their ability to experience this like rich joy, this juicy slowness. Somehow they feel that it's not valuable or it won't keep them safe. Looking at them with compassion and curiosity. And then going up to them. And asking them, why don't they feel safe to be in their pleasure? What do they fear will happen? Just empathizing with them, letting them know that makes sense. And then asking them what they need from you. To trust you. As you both break this pattern and start working toward living from a place of pleasure. What do they need to believe? What do they need to see in you to rebuild that trust? That you've got them, that you're safe, that they're safe to relax. Letting them know that you can do this, that you love them very much, giving them a hug. Feeling them relax, then getting back into the elevator, pressing the button where I'm disconnected from my pleasure. The elevator goes up, up, up to where the sky touches space, and it actually opens up to a scene from present day, revealing to you a hidden way that you're not fully letting pleasure lead. Maybe it's unexpected, or maybe it's really pronounced. You're not trusting your intuition, just noticing where you are in the scene and how by you not being connected to your pleasure, not leading from this place of deservingness to feel joy, how that dims your light, dims the light of those around you. Or maybe just not dimming their light, but not deepening connection. How does that affect you? How does that affect your energy and the energy of those around you? And then going up to your present day self and just asking them, what do they feel afraid of to operate from their place of pleasure? What stigmas or beliefs are they still holding? Just listening without judgment. Thanking them. Hugging them. Just asking, what's one perfect next step that you could take to help them feel into this pleasure more? Again, trusting what they say. And then as you hug them one more time, thank them one more time, getting back in the elevator, pressing the button, the doors close, the elevator goes down, down through the clouds, down, landing on the sand. The elevator doors open up. You come back onto the sand. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, let it go. Another deep breath in. And exhale, opening your eyes, coming back into this space. And in this space, knowing what you know now, after you've kind of identified that list of some of the ways that you are cutting off pleasure, I want you to now write a letter to your younger self and let them know, acknowledge how they feel, like let them know that it makes sense, why they might feel disconnected from their pleasure, but then let them know that you're going to keep them safe and that they deserve to feel this pleasure. And, really thinking about also the ways that you're letting yourself not fully experience it now. What is your commitment to your younger self, and what is your commitment to your current self? And it's also okay in this letter too, if you acknowledge some of the ways that you are experiencing pleasure and being like, you know what, even though we could be experiencing more, it's blocked in this one area. You know what's proof that we can do it is because in this other area we actually do, and I'm proud of us. So let's double down on that. So this letter can be kind of a reflection to your younger and present self, acknowledging where they're disconnected from pleasure, why they might be feeling scared, but then encouraging them, here's this evidence of how we can experience it, why we do deserve it, and here's my commitment to you moving forward. So once again, go ahead and pause the recording and take another 10 minutes to journal on this, maybe even reading that letter out loud once you're done, and really ending it with that vow renewal. Okay, I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hopefully now you have a clear snapshot of where you've been disconnected from your pleasure, where you've been disconnected from your intuition, and you have hope, right? That renewed vow, that trust that you can build it back. And part of this renewed vow with our inner child, with our highest self, with all of ourselves, right? It's not just this one module that we've gotten it back or one ceremony that we do. It's a way of life, right? It's consistently showing up for ourselves and asking our younger self or our highest self each day, what would feel good today? How can I let pleasure lead today? Maybe when I rush through my morning routine, could I slow down? Could I really be in it? When I rush through my meals, could I slow down? Could I enjoy? Maybe when I say yes to somebody, but really it feels like out of obligation, what would an empowered no look like to protect my energy? So what are these ways that I can start letting pleasure lead? And here I'll tell you a brief little anecdote before we go into our last little exercise. A brief anecdote that started me on my self-pleasure journey, and also my journey into prioritizing pleasure and self-love. When I was 24, I had an experience in a ceremony in Peru where I basically felt like my physical body and my spiritual self separate. and have this dialogue with each other. And for context, when I was 24, I'd kind of dated emotionally unavailable guys that were like super hot per se, but didn't like treat me well or weren't emotionally available. And it was also what I chose to tolerate at the time, right? It's that what I deserved. Oh, well, he's super hot. If I break up with him, will I find someone better? I had these kind of stories in my head up until this ceremony. And so finally in the ceremony, when I had this kind of split dialogue between my physical body and my spirit, it's like my physical body finally saw the beauty in the feminine energy and the adoration of my spirit, and my physical body was like, wow, like I really want, like, I can't believe I haven't noticed you. I want to get to know you. And my spirit was like, you can't come in here after 24 years of giving your love and attention to people who didn't even know they had it or didn't even appreciate it and expect me now to just welcome you with open arms and expect me to feel safe with you. Right. And even with like my own physical touch for myself, it's like, I can't just kind of like if someone just came up to you at a dance club and grabbed your butt, you'd be like, I don't know you. So it was kind of like this funny dialogue of like, oh, well, you can't be here and tell me this right out the bat and expect me to just trust you. You have to earn it. And my physical body was like, you're right. I need to like slow down. I need to get to know you. Like what makes you feel comfortable. I promise I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to give up on you no matter how long it takes. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't even know that I was doing this to you and how offensive that must have been. And it was like this whole apology between these fractured parts of myself where I really realized like how much of my power I was giving away to people who didn't even know they had it. And that ceremony really marked my first initial journey of what it looks like to let pleasure lead and to put myself first and to trust kind of like the oxygen mask. If I put the oxygen mask on myself first, then I will be able to put it on other people. And how powerful is that, to have that. So that really marked like, what does it look like to put myself first? What does it look like to even, to look at what types of guy I'm choosing and why I'm choosing them? What does it look like to have a courageous conversation with a guy when I am not feeling valued? Whereas before I might sweep it under the rug to be the cool girl. And then it also was like, how can I slow down? Like before I was just doing power yoga. How can I do yin yoga and be equally appreciative of my body and feeling into my body presently with this, even if it's not like that direct you know, physical high or physical tone up, like doing things that are like letting pleasure lead and really so much of it being about like slowing down to experience sensations and to sit with my emotions, and then using that emotional intelligence to have those boundary setting conversations with other people and to prioritize like my play as well. Play can be pleasure. And so like doing things where I don't take myself too seriously, going to dance classes. Actually right now I like loved waking up and doing dance like to this YouTube channel called The Fitness Marshal. It's super fun. And just like being like my only intention or win is if I make myself laugh. Um, so all of that's to say, that's kind of like my personal anecdote around letting pleasure lead. And now we're going to go into a little experience where you will also let pleasure lead. So we're just going to start by standing up, and you can always pause this and come back to it if you're like driving and listening to this. But I want you to start by standing up and just like having a big shake and just shaking everything out, like shaking out any like anger or resentment or frustration. And maybe you start to like stomp it out. Maybe you start to stomp it out too, or reach your hands up, or even like imagine like your hands like pulling out this energy of like stuckness, pulling out this energy of all the times that you've kept yourself like small or you've disconnected your pleasure. Maybe you imagine pulling it out like a sticky black tar. And you can even put some like rage music on and scream into your pillow like, I'm guiding you, but you can always pause it and like put on your own rage music and do this portion of just like swamping, of like letting yourself feel all of that stuckness or like things that you've suppressed along the way, just pulling them out, stomping them out, shaking them out, screaming, and just let out one big scream or shake. And when you feel like you can't scream or shake anymore, give your whole body a sweep down from your toes to your thighs to your hips up to the crown of your head. Shake everything out. And then standing there, place one hand on your heart and one hand on your womb. And just feeling the space that's being created. And as you breathe, and feel that space, come to a seated position, and we'll come into some Sufi grinds. Sufi grinds, placing your heel against your pubic bone, which will kind of awaken our sacral chakra. And it's like we're doing cat-cow sitting down. So inhale, come forward, arch. Exhale, round, placing your hands on your knees. Inhale, come forward, arch. Exhale, round, feeling your hips move on your chair, your couch, or your bed. Inhale, come forward. Exhale, round. Inhale, come forward. Exhale, round. Inhale, come forward. Exhale, round. Inhale, come forward. Start to stir the pot clockwise, like you're getting into every nook and cranny of your hip. Exhale as you come back around. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And then reverse your circles. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And then coming to center. And now that you feel awakened in your hips, you can always return to these Sufi grinds to awaken your hips in your Svadhisthana chakra. You're going to imagine breathing up from the core of the earth, this golden light, breathing it up through your pelvic floor like you're doing a Kegel, pushing it up so it comes up through your root, your sacral chakra, your navel, pushing it up through your heart, your throat, your third eye, out the crown of your head like a golden fountain coming back down. Inhaling it up from the earth, up through your pelvic floor like you're doing a Kegel, touching your navel, your heart, your throat, your third eye, out the crown of your head. One more time, tracing the energy up from the center of the earth, breathing in up through your pelvic floor, your hips, your navel, your heart, your throat, your third eye, and out your head. Just taking these nice deep breaths, feeling lit up in every chakra point, bringing your awareness down into your sacral area, down into your womb space, and placing both hands on your womb. Imagining an orange light glowing from here as you focus on this chakra, and imagine a lotus flower in your womb space. And as you send this loving light to it, imagine the lotus start to open up, all of the lotus petals opening up, sending this orange light out in all directions, lighting up your whole being, letting you sit taller, bringing a smile to your face, feeling this orange glow aura around you. And imagining that there's a beautiful reflective pool in the middle of this lotus. It allows you to really feel into how it feels to be fully in your pleasure right here and now. And as you look into this reflective pool in the lotus, noticing the energy, the aura, the essence of that you leading from their pleasure. Noticing the empathy, the leadership, the connection to self and others. And asking this lotus to show you a few images of the you who leads from their pleasure. What does that look like? How does that feel, most importantly? How does that feel in your morning? Leading from pleasure, not just getting through your morning routine, but loving it, being recharged by it. How does it feel that you leading from pleasure at work? How does that shift how you think about things and what you're prioritizing? The big swings that you're taking? How you interact with others and savor the communication and the interaction with other energies? How does you leading from pleasure determine what you do in your hobbies or your pastime? and the enjoyment, the permission you give yourself. How does you leading from pleasure shift your relationships, your sensuality with your partner or your future partner, or even just your sensuality with yourself and how you dress up for yourself, move around, oozing with sexiness, how you dress or undress, how you take care of yourself or take a bath. How does leading from pleasure affect how you eat your food and savor, and what kinds of food you put in your body? And how does leading from pleasure make you feel at the end of your day, giving yourself permission just for having enjoyed something, just for enjoying it, just for enjoying the day, regardless of how much you got done, right? But really on how you feel. And as you look at this reflection of yourself, just asking this pleasure-filled version of you, what's one thing you can do right now to start to let pleasure lead? Trusting whatever they say, thanking them, taking a deep breath in, exhale, let it go. Another deep breath in. And exhale, feeling into the pleasure, flushing it out in all directions. And then third and deepest breath in, let it feel good, like you're tracing the breath up and you're feeling it for the first time. And exhaling that out, slowly coming back into the space. Okay, welcome back. And you can always make this practice longer by doing the swamping, doing the Sufi grinds, and then also like doing a little sexy dance. I love dancing to the song Gold Angel by Mink. But doing a little sexy dance where you let your pleasure lead. We didn't do it together today, but that's the invitation for you to do on your own. But while you're in this state of feeling into your pleasure and kind of continuing to let your womb space guide you, the space of infinite magic and intuition and literally the birthplace of life, I want you to pause the recording and go into your journaling. The me who lets pleasure lead does blank. The me who lets pleasure lead does this with her morning. The me who lets pleasure lead acts like this at work. The me who lets pleasure lead does this for, how she savors food or whatever it might be. So let it touch every area of your life. And you can even touch on some beliefs. The you who lets pleasure lead, what do they believe? What do they believe about themselves or about the world? And how do they process their emotions? What do they do with themselves in the quiet times alone? So once again, set your timer for 10 minutes, put on some sexy music, light a candle, and write out that me who lets pleasure lead, and keep writing until you really feel it. Okay, let's do this. Wow. I can't wait to hear the you who lets pleasure lead, and what that feels like and what that looks like. And hopefully now you've gotten a glimpse of how you can let pleasure lead and why it's so important, right? Firstly, processing any stuck emotions, letting yourself feel those, then kind of being present with yourself, awakening your womb space, connecting your mind, your body, your spirit. And then third is the listening to your intuition, the listening to your womb. What would be fun for me? What would be delightful for me? What would be a pleasure for me? And how can I continue to let myself know that I deserve it by taking this time for myself? And so the last thing that I'll say for your homework is to have a pleasure date with yourself this week, whether it is having a bubble bath and, taking a nice slow bath, or maybe it's going to a yin candlelit yoga. Maybe it's doing a literal like pole dancing class to get into the sensuality. Do a pleasure date this week. Also do another swamping this week, whether it's like screaming in the car or doing like that angry dance or like writing a letter and ripping it up, getting the anger out. And the third thing is to celebrate your wins. Celebrate your wins with other friends and like stand tall in them. Celebrate them with me. I want to hear your wins. And that is how we can let pleasure lead. This is just scratching the surface, but I'm excited to see how you can step into your pleasure and thus step into your power because you deserve it. And all of it is tied to giving yourself the time and space to process your emotions and letting yourself do things for the sake of it, because it's fun, and trusting that it doesn't necessarily always need to be productive, that actually when you be and you do from that place, you end up having the thing or having the clarity or having the productivity just as a byproduct of being in tune with yourself. Thank you for listening, and keep me posted on how you lead from a place of pleasure this week. I can't wait to hear. Hey, you. Thank you for coming on this powerful journey with me. I hope it was as powerful for you as it was for me. And if it was, it would mean the world to me if you rate, review, and subscribe to Powerful Stuff so I can keep bringing you the goods. We can keep going on this transformative journey together. And if there's powerful stuff that you want to share with me, with the Powerful Stuff community, tag us on Instagram at That's Powerful Stuff or the Meredith Baker. And I look forward to seeing you next week for more powerful stuff.